It being 6:01 p.m., I'd like to call the December 8th meeting of the Capital Planning Committee to order. Just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded for rebroadcast by Chelmsford Telemedia. On the agenda, first, there we go. On the agenda this evening, our first bit of business is some discussion and questions. I know if anyone has anything that they'd like to bring up, questions or anything on any of the projects. I know some of you had emailed me some. Just a question for Chris. You had sent me some questions. Do you want me to try to run through some of those, or do you want to wait till we get into deliberations?
It's up to you. I think we could wait till deliberations.
Okay.
It's kind of part of that.
Sure.
There's really nothing that was not part of the deliberations.
No. Okay. All right. Thank you. So then we'll move into our deliberations. And I want to thank all the members for submitting your worksheet to me. That's very helpful. Everybody got their worksheet to me, and it was interesting. A lot of people, as you'd expect, everyone took different approaches, but many of you had the same, chose a lot of the same priorities on the projects and that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen and bring up the worksheet just to make it easier for everyone to see. Okay, can everyone see that it looks like an Excel worksheet?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll down. If what I did on this worksheet is I took everyone's responses, all the committee members, and plugged in all of the projects that received 4 or more votes. I'm just going to scroll down a little more, and you can see that it was 16 projects, and the total, if you take all that, is like 4.227 million. If you deduct the recaptured funds at the bottom, you can see it's just over 4 million. It's 4,002,359. I thought a good place for us to start the discussion is project number 3 for the town clerk. I did not fill in a value there, and the reason is I wanted to kind of bounce this off the committee. 2 people had recommended full funding at 200,000. 2 other committee members recommended 100,000, and then another committee member reckoned 160,000. So just wanted to kick it open for discussion if people want to discuss how they came to their recommendation.
If you want, I could start.
Oh, sure. Okay, Chris.
I'm the one that recommended 160,000. And the main reason why is because I thought that since we got some numbers for the fire suppression versus the digitization, it felt like protecting those documents in both rooms, to me, was a very high priority. I think the digitization would be great, but we could always defer that to a later date. It's more of a convenience. But to me, if there ever was a fire, or even a false alarm that might set off the sprinklers, those documents we would lose the documents. And to me, having that fire suppression converted, I think would be a high priority. So what I recommended was I took the 80,000 for both years, this year and next year, and essentially combined it, and would recommend that we do the fire suppression in both rooms at the same time this year.
Thank you, Chris. Any other committee members would want to speak on this project at all?
John, I'll just add my quick 2
sure.
cents. I split it up the middle just because I didn't know if Trish had a plan where she would just be able to split the work in half, knowing that we're up against, such a tight budget. So that was the only reason why I recommended it. I didn't do like a deeper dive like Chris seemed to, but it was just about if we could do, because we obviously want to address that, but it's a matter of if it could be an easier one of these projects that could be spread out over time. That was my only way of looking at that.
All right, thank you, Joe. Yeah, my thought, I didn't, on my worksheet, when I sent out the summary, I didn't fill in an amount. I was kind of thinking that we would talk it over tonight. I was thinking something like partial funding, and I was thinking either, I agree with Chris's comments. The fire suppression to me is very important, because if the sprinklers go off, God forbid, all of that stuff will be ruined at some point. We don't want, I would like to try to avoid that, but I would entertain either. I'm thinking maybe something like, I don't know if it's possible to do the room and then the vault, but I was thinking something like either 80 or something, whatever people are, think is reasonable. It could be 80, it could be the 160. If we do 80, we would be just over the 4 million limit, but it's doable. We're just over 4.02 million, but I'll kick it open to other committee members that want to speak after Joe. If I don't see your hand, please just call out my name, because it's a little difficult to see all the committee members on the screen at one time.
David has his hand up.
Oh, okay. Let me just expand this. David, yes.
You're on mute, David.
Oh, Dave's on mute.
There we go. Thanks
Here
for
he
your help.
goes.
Well, first of all, certainly I agree on the suppression side of the argument completely. The problem I have is when we start taking these projects and we start coming up with a different number than what's submitted, it would be helpful if for instance, if the suggestion is something less than 200,000, I'd really like the town clerk here to give their assessment. If we're going to do something different than what they suggested, their reaction to it, and whether they think it's doable or do they have an objection to it, and what that objection might be. Otherwise, I have a hard time starting to come up with a different number than what's submitted.
Okay. Yeah, I had in my notes, Dave, when Tricia spoke, I had written down, she said, for fiscal year 24, I had written down 120,000 was for digitization and 80,000. She said 10,000 was for engineering, engineering the system, and then 70,000 was for dry suppression, the actual system. So I had written down 120 for digitization and 80 for the suppression part. I don't know if anybody else.
Yep, I got that. I got
And,
that too. And then in my follow-up question, or when she did present, I did ask about doing both systems, both rooms in the same year at the same time. And she did seem open to that suggestion in the last meeting that we had with her.
Oh, Jeff has his hand up.
If we went with the 160 to do both rooms, would that put us too far over? Are we better off with just doing the one at 80?
You'd be looking at 4.16 million. I mean, it's a little more than we were thinking, but if that's what, I mean, we are borrowing over a number of years, so it tends to spread it out a little bit.
And John, I was wondering, would there be a savings doing both rooms at the same time? Because wouldn't you have the same engineer in to check it out?
Right, that would make sense, because you'd be having, I would assume that the engineer would design both together.
Right.
John, if I could.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so so when if they're gonna take on one room, that's separate permits. So if you do them at the same time, you can do it on a one permit. They would have to shut the actual sprinkler system down, the water, drain it. If you do it twice, you double the cost, basically. It would be two different permits, not that we would charge, But the fire alarm company would have to come out again, work on the system, drain the sprinkler system, refill it. There's a cost to that. So there is a savings that way, doing them together at the same time.
Yeah, John, it's Paul. My thought on this is you could probably go the extra 100,000. Let me explain my perspective on this. We have roughly a budget that's approaching $160 million as we move forward, and we're spending $4 million on capital. And if you do the math, that's roughly 2% of the budget is being directly apportioned to new capital. So in my mind, I think that extra, $100,000, is sort of within the realm of reason in terms of how the town, allocates its entirety of its budget. So I think you could do the two if that's the committee's desire.
All right, thank you, Paul. What I'll do, everyone, is I'll add it in just so you can see the total at the bottom. So if we add in 160, that's to do both areas. You're at 4,162,359.
And if
For
you
all.
don't spend the full 160 due to economy of scale, then it turns into recaptured funds. So it comes out fine one way or the other.
Yes, yeah, that's correct. Okay, so that's it. Would anyone else after Jeff or Maggie like to speak on that? Okay, so would any members like to speak on some of the other projects that I know all of the others received 4 or more votes.
I just have a couple questions.
Yes.
This one is on number 21 on the Westlands HVAC. If I remember correctly, in the last meeting, we did mention about the cost sharing for the elevator replacement and how Dr. Lang wasn't comfortable cost sharing that, but I don't think the question was asked about the HVAC. So my question there is, can there be some cost sharing with the other program to reduce that cost?
Sure. Okay. I know Dr. Lang is with us tonight. If he would like to answer that, that would be helpful.
Hi, John.
Hey.
Thank you for having me. That is the first project with the elevator, really, as mentioned last time, we can't participate in. It's hard to say. I mean, yes, we could make the argument that we could participate in some way in this particular project because the whole school is benefiting from the HVAC that's supporting that. The bigger issue, I guess, I would just have is like apportioning how much of the particular project for that. Do you want to maybe see how this whole thing comes out? If we end up, when we're going through this and we're short $20,000 or $30,000 or something like that, I don't mind knocking that off without kind of doing some deep math to figure out how to best apportion it. The other thing, just so you know, we have done recently is we had a project at the school with regard to the bathrooms, and that had been kind of apportioned out because some of the bathrooms are for the ComEd kids and some of the bathrooms are for the CHIP students. And that project, when it went out to bid, came in a little over budget. So we did end up, obviously we want to get the project done. We worked closely with the town to be able to absorb that extra cost within the ComEd funding. So we do that and try to help out and defer as much as we can, say if a project came in over budget. But off the top, like I said, I'm not trying to be too long-winded here. I don't have an exact number to offset for you, but I might just suggest if you wanted to, as you're going through this, if there's a small amount that we need to kind of balance the budget for the request, I'd be happy to take a look at that.
Okay. The reason why I was asking is because I noticed on the floor tiles and the stairwell renovation, I didn't end up putting those into my list, but I hated not putting those in because it seems like such a safety issue to me, that I felt that there might, and I also was wondering if we might be able to reduce the sidewalk and road numbers a little bit in order to fund a couple of those other projects like the floor tiles and the stairwells. So those are just some of my thoughts as I was going through that list.
I saw your questions on that, Chris, and I was going to adjust those. Our DPW director is also here tonight. My thought is just from, listening to the discussion at, at town meeting and other public meetings. Right now, the town is under a lot of pressure to maintain, now that the sewer system is, long been done. That was our kind of a de facto road repair program years ago. Now we seem to be struggling to, we've been coming up with additional monies beyond Chapter 90 and the capital program. So my thought is also with the sidewalk plan that the DPW director talked about last week being released sometime in the winter. I know we've also had a lot of comments on sidewalks, both at town meeting and at select board meetings. So my thought is there, my recommendation would be to try to maintain that. If we suddenly receive some type of state money in addition, we could probably take a look at this again. But if either Christine or town manager Cohen want to weigh in, that would be my thought on this.
John, I agree. Also, we are rebidding. So on an annual basis, we rebid our sidewalk, but specifically roadway projects. And so we are anticipating costs to increase. We secured bids earlier this year. And our prices this year were actually pretty favorable compared to where they could have been if we had bid it this past summer. Prices are still inflated. So when we asked for the request, we level funded it. And also knowing that the increases that we might be seeing might be beyond 10% or even, we're seeing increases of 25, 30%. So even, I guess, with the ask that we had, we were level funding it. So we're going to try to do as much as we can. I think we are under a lot of pressure to try to have as much roadway paved as possible. And also with this sidewalk plan, master plan being revealed this, late winter, spring, that also be great to kick it off with a decent amount of funding. So, I'm open for discussion, but I just, from DPW's perspective, there's that, and as John, you stated, it is a main focus point in the town. And I think also the sidewalk construction where we are focusing is around the schools too. So, it won't be stairs, but it would be also looking at work around schools, especially for this sidewalk work.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak or offer comments? Oh, Maggie has a comment.
I agree that we shouldn't take any money from sidewalks or streets. I also felt bad that the floor tile stairway renovation didn't make the list, but there's just so many crucial projects there and we just don't have enough money. But roads and sidewalks are what get people's ire really up. And it's a safety issue. So I think we should stick with that.
Thank you. Any other comments on roads or the sidewalk projects? Okay, not seeing any hands. If I miss a hand, please speak out and I will call on you. And then moving down the list, are there any other projects that folks would want to discuss further? There's the other 2 DPW projects, and then we get into the town office's elevator, and then there's a series of the school projects that were recommended by 4 or more committee members. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. If I miss you, please speak out. So that brings us to $4,162,359. If the committee is satisfied with that, I think it's a reasonable plan. This was a very tough year, I will say that. More than one committee member wrote to me and said, even the members that have been doing this for a while said it's one of the toughest years. They had to make some tough decisions, and I agree wholeheartedly with that. There's so many projects, but I think this is a good balance. And we've tried to hit a lot of the highest priority projects. If any committee members want to speak, you're more than welcome to do so. If someone would like to make a motion to approve the plan as presented with that total, I would also entertain that. Okay, Maggie, you have your hand up?
I would make a motion to approve the total is presented of 4162359.
Okay, do we have a second?
Jeff seconded it.
Jeff seconded. Okay, thank you. I'm just having difficulty seeing. Okay, seconded by Jeff Doherty. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
I raise my hand.
All those opposed? I'm not seeing any opposed votes. Any abstentions? Okay, no, 0 abstentions. Okay, so all committee members voted in the affirmative. I'm just repeating this back for the person that does our minutes. Okay, all right, thank you. I appreciate your work. I know this wasn't an easy year. What I will do following the conclusion of the meeting, I will send a list out to everyone, just so you'll have it. And it'll be what you're seeing here on the screen. Our next order of business is our minutes taker, Vivian, worked hard to get the minutes completed for the previous 2 meetings, November 30th and December 1st. I emailed those out to everyone this morning. Hopefully people had a chance to look at those. And if people are comfortable with approving, please let me know if you see any items that should be edited or corrected. If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the November 30th minutes as presented.
I move to approve the November 30th minutes as presented.
Okay, motion by Chris. Do we have a second?
I'll second those.
Oh, seconded by Joe. Okay, all those in favor of approving the November 30th minutes as presented, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 All those opposed? And no abstentions. All right, thank you. Okay, then moving on to the December 1st minutes, I'd entertain a motion to approve those as presented.
I move to approve the December 1st minutes
Okay,
as
motion by
presented.
Chris. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Okay, all those in favor of approving the December 1st meeting minutes as presented, please say aye, or you can raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, not seeing it, so it's unanimous. That brings us to our public comment section. I don't see anybody here for that. If anyone would like to say anything under public comment, please let me know.
John, I just want to thank everybody for their contributions and efforts, to this committee this year.
Thank you, Paulie. Oh, and Jeff would like to speak.
I guess 4 years ago, when I first was on this committee, I was very nervous because you have to say no to people. But John, you do a great job. And I just want to thank all the department heads for being understanding and working cooperatively and working with the rest of the committee. It made a position I was very nervous about very pleasurable. And I want to thank everyone. It's a great sign for this town how people can cooperate.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I want to echo that as well. I appreciate everybody working together, and both committee members and department heads have been very good over the year about, the art of compromise. I mean, if we had unlimited financial resources, we'd like to approve all of these if we could, but we can't. So the work that this committee does is very important.
Yeah,
John-
Sean, I agree with everybody, and I like what Jeff said, because it was tough for us to make these calls. And like we had mentioned when we first jumped on the call last week, it was nice to get the priorities and everybody adjusted the priorities. I would just make the recommendation that that's a common practice. Let's hopefully we're not in that tighter budget going forward, but if to itemize it a certain ways, so we're in that spot, so they have that priority going forward. So hopefully we'll have an easier call to make next time, but that seemed to work out well on this to help us
Yes.
make those choices.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I'll make sure next year we'll, and we have been doing that for a while, and part of that, I take responsibility, been out of the office for a little bit, but I will remind everybody next year that, just to give us their, if they're submitting more than one project to give us their priorities, that will help us, but thank you to everyone that.
Thank
that
you.
Submit those.
I want to thank everybody too, John, because there's a lot of projects to review, a lot of demands, and I appreciate everybody giving up their time. It's not easy to make these decisions and stuff, and I am appreciative of everybody's time and efforts and consideration, and I wish everybody a happy holidays.
Thank you, Gary. Would anyone else like to speak? Please raise your hand if so.
John, you just deserve terrific credit. You know, this is my third go around on this committee over a series of years, and it just keeps on getting better and better and easier to do the job because of all the work you put into it ahead of time.
Oh, thank you, Maggie. It's a team effort with all the committee members, the department heads, and the town manager. We always screen these projects, and we to try to bring forward projects that are worthwhile. So I appreciate your thoughts. Would anyone else like to speak after Maggie? All right, not seeing. I don't want to cut anybody off, but I'm not seeing any hands. So thank you, everyone. I would, if there's no more comments or questions, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
So moved by Maggie. Do we have a second?
Second.
By Jeff, looks like. Okay, all those in favor of the motion to adjourn, please raise your
Aye.
hand, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, thank you, everyone. The ayes have it. I appreciate your work, and I will get a summary out to everyone.
Thank you, John. Happy holidays,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank
Happy
you.
You
holidays,
all,
Kim.
happy holidays.
Thank
Bye
you,
now.
everyone.
Aye.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.